The Rockies draft is 2 days away, and we are going to break down everything that could possibly happen for the Colorado Rockies. A draft preview coming up next on the DNVR Rockies podcast. What's up, everyone? Welcome in live at the DNVR Rockies studios. This is the DNVR Rockies podcast presented by Bet365. Download the Bet365 app. Use that code DNVR365. Place a bet for $5. You can get $150 back in bonus bets. Today's all about what you can get back, or what the Rockies specifically could possibly be getting back in the 2025 draft. It's our draft preview show here, and we've got a draft in 2 days, almost 48 hours away, Sunday, 4 p.m. Mountain Time. The Rockies have the 4th overall pick, and we've got all the coverage coming up for you guys here over the next couple days. Christian Saez, Big Fly Spence, Big Drive Spence, as he's known, and we've got a friend, an old friend, joining us back on the show. Let's welcome in Nate Mills, who is about a couple months removed from his last show with us, but we had to bring him back to talk baseball, to talk draft specifically. Nate, welcome back to the show.
I'm so excited to see you guys, and I'm very happy to be back here on the podcast. This is great.
The last time we were talking to you, it was like the end of spring training. The Rockies hadn't fully collapsed yet, and we were feeling like there was some hope and optimism. Obviously, that has completely gone in the opposite direction, but we find ourselves once again talking to you in a moment of hope and optimism. The Rockies have the 4th overall pick in the 2025 draft. It is the last season, at least over the next couple years, in which they will have a top 10 pick. So a lot of eyes are on the Colorado Rockies and how they handle this draft. Now, I know when you were working with us here at DNVR, you did a lot of work specifically looking at the future of the possible draft picks for the Rockies. So I want to get your overall take on this, kind of your 360-degree viewpoint. How should the Rockies approach this draft from your perspective, from all of the research you've done leading up to this?
I'm going to keep my same energy from what I had a few months ago working at DNVR. I think it's time to revitalize the Blake Street Bombers. That approach has to be the same in this year's draft. I'm a big college bat guy, and we'll get into that a little bit more, but I think that's where the Rockies have to look. They're in a situation right now where they were going through a rebuild, so to speak, quote unquote. And right now is that timeline to where that rebuild should be done. Obviously, we're not even close. So at this point, you're going, okay, do we make up for lost ground with this rebuild that has taken so long? Or do we rebuild on top of the rebuild and get even younger high school guys? Compared that to college bats that might be a little bit more ready for the big league level. In my opinion, I think Rockies fans would prefer the latter, and I think the Rockies should go after the latter as well. Okay, all right, I like it.
I mean, anytime the Rockies talk about drafting a pitcher, it always kind of gets your heart racing a little bit. Not in a good way, I should say. I don't think the Rockies have a very good, history of drafting pitchers. I mean, what's naming off the top of your head? Give me 2 or 3 Rockies pitchers that you can name that actually panned out that they drafted.
Oh, I was going through all the guys that didn't. The Riley Pines and the Greg Reynolds and Kyle Freeland.
Kyle Freeland, okay, that's one.
That's
John Gray.
John Gray panned out. He was great. He was John Great for a while, and then they, with the falling dominoes of not signing anyone back, they just let him go, and he won a World Series in Texas, so good for him. That panned out, man,
It's got to be like Kyle Freeland. Yeah. I mean, John Gray, Kyle Freeland are the two that come to mind. Was German Marquez a Rockies draft pick?
No, they got him very young from Tampa Bay. Traded Corey Dickerson for German Marquez, which at the time Dickerson was raking as a Rocky, and we're all like, "What are you doing?" And then Marquez, came on like 2017, and we're like, "Oh, the Rockies made a good trade. What is this?"
I know. So pitchers are At least, they haven't shown that they've panned out for the most part in a draft and development situation with the Rockies. So it makes sense to look towards the bats. And I would say the biggest bat, at least from a Rockies perspective, Rockies fan perspective, feels like Ethan Holliday, the high school shortstop, son of Matt Holliday, who we all know who Matt Holliday is. So obviously the hype is there for Ethan, but I want to take more of a specific approach to this of, the name is there, the excitement is there, but do you think that Ethan Holliday would actually be a good fit for the Colorado Rockies in your eyes?
Ethan Holliday, a very toolsy player, and I would argue and say he has more hype than his brother Jackson did coming into the draft. And Jackson has even admitted that Ethan has a little bit more tools than he does, which is a lot to say for Jackson Holliday. But I think he would be a good fit on pure power alone. It's a big frame that would probably project to third base at the big league level. His power has impressed at Stillwater High School in Oklahoma. This summer, prepping with Team USA baseball team, the contact hasn't really been there for Jackson or for Ethan Holliday, and that's the biggest concern with him coming into this draft. Yes, he's projected to be a 1-1 guy, so I even wonder if the Rockies will have the option to pick Ethan Holliday because he might go first overall to the Washington Nationals. But if they do have the chance, they're really going to have to work with him in the minor league system to get that hit tool in order, get the bat to ball skills, because that's been a little bit problematic this summer with Team USA and a little bit in high school where he hasn't faced the best velocity in the state of Oklahoma, but he has made a recent hitting adjustment from the left-handed side of the batter's box. He has incorporated a toe tap, which has helped him make a little bit more contact with the baseball, and of course some help from his father, Matt Holliday. That's just an elite resource to have right there every single day talking about your swing. So he's made that adjustment playing for Team USA, and he's starting to connect a little bit more. But for me, some red flags kind of go up with that hit tool for Ethan Holliday. You just don't want to see another guy rack up, strikeout numbers, pop out numbers. I know analytics say you want to have that slugging and it's projectable and it's something you can work with in the minor league system. But again, I am of the belief that the Rockies need to get a more proven bat. And while I do think Ethan Holliday could be a big boom, I think Colorado might have to go for a safer pick here, in my opinion. But I do like Ethan Holliday.
That's good. That's good. I like that. And look, like I said, Ethan is the nostalgic pick for the Rockies. I think every Rockies fan, not just from a analytics perspective, but also from an emotional perspective, would love to see Ethan Holliday come to Colorado. The story is there. I mean, the quote you were referencing, by the way, Jackson had said, had talked about Ethan being a better option than him. But also Matt, when Matt Holliday was in Colorado last year, he went on the record saying, quote, Jackson's pretty good, but wait until you see Ethan. So, that could just be a father hyping up his, future draft pick son. But also you look at his stats in high school, he had a 2.046 OPS. He had 16 home runs in 118 plate appearances, 32 games. The stats are there, but like you said, there is concern with the swings and misses. And, if you look at his numbers too in high school, it's not just that he was like, had, kind of a couple swing and misses here or there. Like he was having significantly more strikeouts than other top draft pick projections in his same high school class. So as a Rockies fan, as a Rockies, reporter, like that does make me a little nervous as well. So you kind of look at it like, do we trust that the Rockies can fix that, can take care of that, or that Matt Holliday is going to be able to help develop him as well? Or should we go with someone a little more seasoned? So I'm kind of indifferent actually on this. If the Rockies draft Ethan Holliday, I'll be happy with that. If the Rockies decide to draft someone else, depending on who they draft, I might be okay with that too. So if we transition from Ethan, if not Ethan, then who do you think would be a good specific fit for the Rockies?
Before I answer that, can we just take a moment and think about that stat you just said? A 2 OPS.
I know.
That is mind-boggling.
He's hitting like 600 in high school.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
I had to guess. Christian tried to make me guess what he was hitting in high school, and I was like, well, I hit 400 in high school, so it's got to be like 455. And he's like, yeah, it's like 630 or something like that. Like it's just absolutely just. I don't know what other like these 17-year-old Oklahoma kids are like. Oh God, here we go again.
It's a hit like every other at bat. I mean, that's what you're looking at.
God, that's ridiculous. I'm gonna be thinking about that for until draft day comes. But no, I have been thinking about who the Rockies should take watching the end of this college baseball season. Up until this point, I'll probably be thinking about it until Sunday. I have a few names in mind. 2 of them are a little bit outlandish. I know some people in the chat asked about bold predictions. I have a bat that is projected to go in the middle of the first round, but I think is being underslotted and could go higher. I'm not saying the Rockies should take him, but I'm saying teams should look at this name a little bit longer. Wahiwa Aloy, the first Hawaiian to ever win the Golden Spikes Award, is projected to go in the middle of the first round. But man, he's got, I think, the most projectable power, honestly, besides Ethan Holliday in this draft. And he doesn't, again, like Ethan, doesn't project as a big league shortstop, will probably be a third baseman at the next level. He kind of had a play in the College World Series that was a little problematic, and not knowing where, or he knew where to go with the ball, was just kind of in the wrong spot. So there's some lapses on defense for Wahiwa, but the power is certainly projectable. The bat, though, that I do think Colorado should take, and this name is a little more a common one that you'll hear often. But again, because I like my seasoned college bats for power, I think Iva Arquette from Oregon State would be a perfect fit for Colorado. Guys, it's a 6'5", 200+ pound frame. He plays in the middle infield, probably can play at third, left side of the infield, most likely. But he's got great power. He's toolsy. He's a little wiry, and I think he would fill out really well at the next level. We talk about that 2,000 OPS for Holliday. While that is ridiculous, Iva Arquette at a Power 4 school that made the College World Series slugged 654 in college. So I like those numbers a lot. I think he'd be the best fit for Colorado in this draft.
He also, to my understanding, had some good contact results as well. Like he's not, I wouldn't say an average hitter or like a hit for average type of guy, but he wasn't striking out, at huge rates. And so, we talk about the possible downside from Ethan Holliday. You look at the possible upside from Iva Arquette. He's definitely my secondary pick as well. I do not want the Rockies to go for a pitcher. I'm just like Nate. I just don't trust it. So I look at the availability and I say if it's not going to be Ethan, it's got to be Iva. But we've got a couple more minutes here, Nate. I want to finish this by asking, because you always see, at least I picture, you always see those draft reaction parties of, they take a video of, a local sports bar that everyone's watching the draft. And then, the team drafts some name that no one's ever heard of. And you see everyone put their hands on their heads, just like, oh my God, why would we draft that guy? You're getting the 4th overall pick. So, there aren't going to be really a bad pick that the Rockies could take, but is there a name on there that you personally, if the Rockies called with the 4th overall pick, that you'd be like, ooh, I don't like that for the Rockies. I don't think that fits for the Rockies. Is there a specific name for you?
I mean, look, the Rockies have the 4th overall pick, so I don't know how often you're going to see the surrendering Cobra going, who exactly is this guy? I think everyone's going to know who the top 5 picks are, but there is a guy, and I'm going to stay on the theme of what this segment has been. I do not want them to see, with all due respect, I do not want them to pick Seth Hernandez. He is the most projectable pitcher, I think, for a high schooler. The fastball is there. He played at the best high school in the country at Corona in Southern California. But again, there is so much risk that comes with drafting pitchers, especially right-handed pitchers, especially high school right-handed pitchers. The maturity isn't quite there yet. And Christian, we've talked about maturity with Zach Veen way back when at the beginning of this season. So that's been an issue for Colorado. That's going to be another thing that they're going to have to work on with him. On top of that, injuries for Seth Hernandez. And look, I mean, it's a boom or bust thing for him as well. It could either be a slam dunk, home run, whatever you want to call it. He could be an elite pitcher. But famously, we talked about it a little earlier on this show, the Rockies have not had a great track record with developing pitchers and drafting good pitchers. I wrote in my article about revitalizing the the Blake Street Bombers that they haven't had a good history with that for the most part, with a few exceptions that we talked about. So Seth Hernandez, I think, would fall under that category for me. It's a project. It would have to be a project, and it could work out perfectly well, or it could be catastrophic for Colorado. I think they're in a spot right now, in my opinion, that I don't think the Rockies should risk anything. I think we need to work on what is safe, what we know can be good, and go towards that for the Rockies.
Well, hopefully we don't have to clip you saying that after the Rockies draft Seth Hernandez or whatever it is, because I'm with you. I'm with you. The pitcher's just a little, makes me a little nervous. Is there a pitcher, before we have to hit our first break, is there a pitcher that if the Rockies drafted, you would be okay with? Obviously, Cade is high on that list if he even made it to the 4th overall pick. But is there a pitcher that you would be okay with the Rockies taking?
Yeah, if Cade is not available, and I would assume he's not, in my opinion, I think he's going to go 1 overall to the Nationals. But I do really like Jamie Arnold from Florida State. The left-hander is, I think, the most projectable pitcher in this draft. I talked about Seth Hernandez a little bit. High school arm, still a little too early to say because he's got a plus fastball, but again, injuries, maturity. Jamie Arnold has proved it at an ACC school, which is underrated in college baseball. The Seminoles always are producing good talent on the Hill. I think Jamie Arnold would continue that trend, and I wouldn't be too upset with this pick for the Rockies. If you were to pick a pitcher, I think that would be the guy you take with the 4th overall pick.
Yeah, Jamie's got good stuff. Finished 3rd in Division I in strikeouts. He's got a weird arm angle, which is always kind of fun too, especially if he's going to be pitching at Coors Field one day. So I'm with you. FSU product, good stuff. Appreciate your time, Nate. Thank you as always. Love having you on. We'll have to have you on again after the draft to talk about how wrong you were on everything, and we'll have some fun.
I probably will be. I mean, with stuff like this, with drafting, with scouting, with recruiting, at the end of the day, no one really knows what they're talking about. So that will probably happen.
Especially the Rockies.
Yeah.
All right, man. Appreciate it. Thank you again, Nate. Nate Mills. You can follow him online at Nate Mills Media. Thank you, Nate. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
All right, we're going to hit our first break. After the break, though, we continue our draft conversations. How important is it for the Rockies to score big on this draft? Feels like kind of a dumb hypothetical question, but we'll get to that after the break. All right, I want to give some love to our friends right now over at Bet365 because here in the DNVR Rockies, we love our anti-Rockies parlays. And the Rockies are, after a day off, they're back. We have 2 Rockies games coming up over the next 2 days, which is weird. I had to actually double check the schedule because I was like, is there another game that happens? Like, it's a 2-game series against the Reds. It's also, the day or 2 days before the draft. So I can't say I'm that locked in on the games, but do you have any Bet365 bets using that code DNVR365?
I do. And so you're getting a 50% profit boost today on the Bet365 app for an MLB bet. And Rockies, we've got Marquez versus Chase Burns.
Okay.
So
it's a good
I'm putting together a little parlay, but it's going to definitely include Chase Burns over in strikeouts, which the Rockies have been striking out quite a bit the last couple of games. I missed a parlay the other day because they didn't strike out quite enough. That always hurts. Let's see here. We've got Chase Burns. Well, first of all, Ellie De La Cruz to hit a home run is plus 290. That's going to be in there. I believe Great American Ballpark, if it's still called that, where Cincinnati plays, is one of the, if not the most homered in ballpark of this year. So I am excited to see. Yeah, I'm hammering the home runs. I'm hammering the Hunter Goodman home run, and I'm hammering the Ellie De La Cruz home run. And strikeouts, Chase Burns, you can get over 7 or 7+ for minus 145. I might take that up to 8+ at plus 140. And German Marquez over 4 strikeouts adds to that parlay and makes it plus 800. So German Marquez, 4+ strikeouts, and Chase Burns, 8+ strikeouts is, I think, going to be just my simple strikeout parlay for the day.
Love it. I love it. Like I said, use that code DNVR365 when you sign up. See why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older and physically located in Colorado. Please gamble responsibly. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. Also, got to give some love to our new friends over at Cake Mortgage. If you are buying a house and you need to get your mortgage approved, a loan approved for your mortgage, you got to use Cake Mortgage because Cake Mortgage, basically, allows the non-traditional, professions, creative professionals, contractors, tech entrepreneurs, business founders, freelancers, people who don't have a normal 9-to-5, a normal salary like that you can easily get approved with. It allows you to get approved for a mortgage, get approved for a mortgage loan. I can say so many incredible things about them because I personally have had great experiences. I've told my story plenty of times about how I do a lot of freelance broadcasting, and using Cake Mortgage to get approved on a loan is awesome. They really make sure that you can get the house that you deserve, the house that you work for, right? It doesn't matter what your income is. You work to be able to afford a house, and so Cake Mortgage helps you get that done. Head to the link in the description to get started. Cake Mortgage Corporation, equal housing lender, NMLS number 1734623, licensed in Colorado by the Division of Real Estate. Terms and conditions apply. All right, continuing our MLB 2025 draft preview. Talked about some of the top draft picks that were available with our good friend Nate Mills. Appreciate him taking the time to chat with us. There's a lot of good picks. There's a lot of good people available. And it feels like a blessing of riches because, on one hand, the Rockies have the 4th overall pick. So you feel like you can't really go wrong. Like Nate even said it. There's not going to be a draft pick that the Rockies are going to choose at 4th overall where you just are in shock about how stupid of a move that was. Like, you're going to get a good player. But with all that being said, there is still a lot of pressure to get the right good player. We've talked, already about how the Rockies, despite Charlie Condon playing well, in Double-A right now, and he's looking better than he was coming into this season. Jack Caglianone is, at the big league level right now, and he's hitting 460-foot home runs, and and so we've talked about the kind of big what ifs, which we'll continue to do, by the way, next week on our big rank show or our what if show. But the Rockies, they can't miss. You cannot, if this is going to be the start of your rebuild or the restart of your rebuild, you have to make the most out of this draft. And I don't care if it's Ethan Holliday, Iva Arquette, I don't care who it is, but you've got to hit. There's no room for error here.
Yeah, and this draft is funny because I'm thinking of the Avs because the Avs got the number 4 pick when they probably should have had the number 1 overall pick, like the Rockies, and they got Cale Makar. So I'm really hoping that something like this happens for the Rockies. But I feel like this is almost a can't lose if this draft goes 2 specific ways. If this draft goes and Ethan Holliday goes number 1 and he's gone, I think that's for the Rockies brass. I don't know what they're thinking, right? We all know as fans, as people that watched the 07 Rockies that followed Matt Holliday's career, knew what he meant. Now there's lineage there between Jackson being in the MLB. He says Ethan's even better to Colorado media. Everybody in Colorado wants the Rockies to draft Ethan Holliday. And if he's gone, he's gone. That kind of takes some of the pressure off. And to me, if Ethan Holliday's gone and you draft Iva Arquette, which I'm starting to get more on board with Arquette because I want, like Nate talked about, a college bat and somebody a little bit more ready does feel safe. But if Holliday drops and the 3rd pick is announced and they are not right on the phone immediately and it's not Ethan Holliday and he's there and they're not immediately on the phone saying we're taking Ethan Holliday at 4, I think it's a loss from the perspective of the Rockies have never shown us that they're smarter than we hope they are.
They've never proved us wrong.
Yeah, they've never proved us wrong in these. And the Rockies drafted they drafted the 4th overall pick. Nate was talking about the high school arm, this Hernandez kid. They did this exact thing a couple of years back. They drafted Riley Pint. The guy was throwing 102 in high school. He was a right-handed arm, had some injuries, and has never worked out, never made the pros. And not saying I think the way we're talking about this, they could shock us and draft a pitcher, but I'm exclusively looking at the hitters, and it's basically what we've kind of talked about in the draft coverage is pitchers are going to go 2 and 3 no matter what, based on the team needs and based on those front office organizations. So we're looking at 1 is Holliday and 4 is Arquette, or 1 is Arquette and 4 is Holliday. That's kind of how it looks like it's going to shape out. Now, the Rockies could absolutely shock us and go in a completely different direction or draft a guy that, we're doing the honestly, this year the Broncos did it with Sade Barron, great player, but nobody even considered him on the board. So the Rockies could go and do that, but I think it's a slam dunk pick if it's Holliday because it's Ethan Holliday, and I think it's a slam dunk pick if it's Arquette. And if you pass on either of those guys and try to be the smartest person in the room and it doesn't pan out, it's going to look bad. But at this point,
it's a risk.
Yeah, at this point, like, to me, Ethan Holliday is a no-risk pick because if you pick him and he doesn't work out, you just say it was Ethan Holliday. His brother's in the league. His dad is in the league. They were both all-stars. Like, what did you want me to do?
Yeah.
Versus you go and like, oh, I think this guy's going to be better than Ethan Holliday. He may be in 4 or 5 years and may make it to the majors in 4 or 5 years. But right now, the slam dunk pick, if he's on the board, is Ethan Holliday.
I totally agree with you. Also, Cole in the chat made a good point earlier where he said if you draft Ethan, you're also drafting his dad or redrafting Matt Holliday, right? And that's a great point because you're right. Like, you get both. You know, I mean, when Jackson Holliday came to Coors Field last year to play against the Rockies, Matt Holliday was in the Rockies dugout talking to media and being part of that entire experience. So if Ethan Holliday ends up in Colorado, Matt Holliday also ends up back in Colorado, at least through a connection standpoint. So you're right. That is the absolutely safe deal. The only pitcher that I know Doyle, Liam Doyle from Tennessee that Nate was talking about, Doyle would be an okay pick if the Rockies were going to choose a pitcher. If Cade Anderson is still on the board by 4, which there is 0 chance that happens, he will go number 1, in my opinion. If Cade Anderson is still on the board, you have to take him, even if Ethan Holliday was on the board, which both of those things wouldn't be true at the same time. Dre and I, Andre Simone, longtime DNVR guy, our GM now, he and I were talking about, this draft before the show, and he was saying, honestly, like the thing that would surprise him most is if one of the 2 teams in the middle, so let's say the Nationals don't choose Ethan Holliday at the number 1 overall pick. We're just assuming that means that the Rockies are now going to be the next team to choose Ethan Holliday. He was like, the biggest shock would be if one of the 2 middle teams ended up taking Ethan Holliday at the 2 or 3 pick and the Rockies were left with, someone else at that point. That would be the biggest shock in the draft because we're just assuming that if he doesn't get chosen at number 1, that he's going to be number 4 available for us.
Yeah. And when you look at the guys on the board and the high school players versus college bats, there's a couple of things working against the Rockies in the fact if you draft a high school player, whether it's an arm or a bat, and the fact that they haven't had great success developing a younger player to get all the way up to the major leagues through that lower level. But on the flip side of that, I'm taking the Holliday name out of it. Let's just say his name was Ethan Jackson and it wasn't Matt Holliday's kid. Where we are right now, there's no clear-cut sign that you need somebody to be ready by September of 27. You don't need anybody till 28 or 29 at this point. And so I don't trust them to get a high school player all the way up to the majors successfully. But if you're looking at it on a timeline specific basis, I'd rather have a high school kid that can help us in 4 or 5 years and be, say the younger kids in the Rockies organization grow up now and you have a few players that become good and then the Rockies in 2028 are fighting for a playoff spot. And then you can bring up a kid that you drafted now, this number 4 overall pick, and it's like a low pressure situation where you've got a decent team around him. Like whoever this kid is probably knows that he's going to be pushed a little faster than other players because of where the Rockies are at. And we're seeing it with Charlie Condon right now. I mean, the Rockies are doing a decent job, I think, of he's hurt, so it's kind of hard, but they promoted him to AA. But I mean, and myself included, I'm not calling out Rockies fans. I wouldn't be pissed if Condon joined the fucking team after the All-Star break. I would be like, cool. And that's not the right way to do it. That's just the fan in me saying that. But this guy's going to have a lot of pressure on his shoulders. And quite frankly, the Rockies have a lot of pressure to get the right guy that can fill that void. And they're not picking in the top 10 for a while. So this is your last real shot at getting a guy that everybody's talking about once he gets to the minors and he's playing in the futures game and all this kind of stuff for the team moving forward.
Yeah. It's a big spotlight on the Rockies. It is funny when you look at the top 5 or 6 picks and it's like shortstops and pitchers, left-handed pitchers. I mean, I'm going down the list. Another shortstop that we haven't really talked a lot about, who kind of burst onto the scene, I would say, this year. High school shortstop Eli Willits. His father played in major leagues for 6 years. He's 6'1" switch hitter, which we know Spencer loves. But he's a guy with sneaky pop and a very, very plus glove. I would be surprised if the Rockies took him just because he doesn't have the same upside as another high school player like Jackson Holliday. But he has a positive upside, so he's another name on that list. But then you go into pitchers, and it's like Liam Doyle, Cade Anderson, Jamie Arnold, Seth Fernandez, like Nate was talking about. Like there's a lot of value at the top of that list, and this isn't going to be one of those draft years where you feel like it's kind of shallow waters and you're just hoping to skim someone off the top. Like this is a deep draft class, so I'm curious to see how the Rockies approach this, and I'm curious to see if they, like you said, if they have a game plan going right into their pick, or if they have to sit there on the phone for a little bit, kind of figuring out in the war room, what direction they want to go.
Right. And hopefully they have a list of a few guys, and if they have a top 5 list, that's all they'll need, because everybody will be available. So here, put on your GM hat for a second. I'm going to ask you, Christian Saez is the GM of the Colorado Rockies right now. Do you, now Nate said this, we're going to say this multiple times today. We're going to say it multiple times at our draft party on Sunday and show, like, nobody knows what any of these guys are going to be. Let's just start with that base. Like, we have no idea.
You're betting. It's a bet right now.
You're betting on any of these guys. But would you go, if there's a projected safer, maybe lower floor, lower ceiling kind of guy, or higher floor, lower ceiling kind of guy, or would you go with a guy that is either a home run or a strikeout? Like, if you were the Rockies GM, would you feel more comfortable going in one? Because with
like, are you talking like safer or risk?
Yes,
like
exactly. And
safe to risk value,
exactly.
ratio.
And I'm basically saying we all know that none of these guys, we have no clue what they're actually going to be. But let's say there's this projected high school player that could be the next Bobby Witt, but there's also a college player that could be the next mediocre
Jordan Beck.
Yeah, Jordan Beck. Where would you go as a Rockies GM with the 4th overall pick, knowing that this guy probably will make the majors, but you never know if he's going to be that great? This guy over here could be a Hall of Famer, but he also could just never get past AA.
Yeah, I think of like a Jack Caglianone in that, where it's like on paper, you look at him and you're just like, oh my God, he's got so many crazy tools, but also like, I just don't know. You never know. It's funny. If it was me and, and the Rockies were in the season that they're in, I'm taking risks just because let's just say you just brought me in this year. Like, think of what, Epstein did in Boston when he came into as this like 18-year-old, GM, youngest GM ever, and had to bring them back to the World Series and break the curse and all of that kind of stuff. Like, you had to go out and take risks. I think if it was me, I'd want to go out there and take the risk. But one of the questions I wanted to ask, and we got to get to this real quick before we hit our next break, we all know that Bill Schmidt is on the hot seat. Most likely won't make it into next season. He'll most likely get fired or pushed into retirement by the end of this year. So does that change how the Rockies or how he approaches the draft? Because maybe he doesn't want to go and take a big risk and have it fizzle out. And that's another thing that goes on his record of, man, he was such a bad GM. Look at this draft that he made. Look at how bad of a, trades these were, or no trades he didn't make, So maybe that changes how aggressive they want to be. If it's me, I'm being aggressive. But maybe Bill Schmidt sees that in a different way. The good thing about, Bill Schmidt being on the hot seat and taking control of this draft is the fact that there are other hands in the pot. Mark Gustafson, other scouts. There are other people involved in this draft that are going to have a say in this. And that makes me feel a little bit better about him managing the draft as it does about him managing the trade deadline. I'm a little more concerned about Bill Schmidt managing the trade deadline than I am the draft. So I've got to hit this next break. But after the break, we'll do a little nuts and bolts for this draft. We'll also recap old draft wins and draft losses. There's a lot of draft losses the Rockies have, unfortunately. So we'll get to all that coming up next. Well, I want to give a shout out to our friends right now over at Empire Today. Empire Today, if you are looking to replace your floors, Empire is where you need to go. They're the best in the business. You hear their jingle all the time on TV, on the radio, and I've worked with Empire in the past, and they have done incredible work getting the perfect floor, the floor of your dreams, if you could say something like that. Some people, they don't dream about getting nice floors. They just want to get a floor in that comes in and replaces their floors, and it's perfect and it's everything they want, and then they can move on with their lives. But other people put a lot more work and effort and time. You know, maybe you're building the house of your dreams and you want to get the perfect floor. Whether you're just doing a quick fixer-upper or you are in fact building the house of your dreams and you want to get the perfect floor, Empire today is perfect to fit all of your needs. Their quality service, speed and efficiency is great. They have been incredible in working with my wife and I to get our floors replaced before we move into our new house. So be sure to check them out. Schedule a free in-home estimate today because some things are just better at home. DNVR listeners can receive a $350 discount when you use promo code DNVR. Yes, you heard that right. That's a $350 discount with that code DNVR. Restrictions apply. Visit EmpireToday/DNVR for full details. Also want to give some love to our friends right now over at First Bank. Whether on the road, at home, or somewhere in between, First Bank makes banking easy, convenient, and secure. Their mobile banking app allows you to check balances, pay friends, and manage your money anytime, anywhere. And here's the best part. If you open a new First Bank checking account today, you could earn $300. First Bank is all about helping you stay on track. Their tools make it simple to stay in control of your finances without the hassle. No matter where life takes you, First Bank gives you the freedom to bank how and when it works best for you. So if you're ready for a better banking and the chance to earn a little extra, head to efirstbank.com/bonus. That's efirstbank.com/bonus to open your account. Bank how you want, when you want with First Bank. Certain restrictions and requirements apply. Member FDIC. Okay, looking forward to the draft tomorrow. Day one, or Sunday, right? Sunday. Yeah, that's the day. What day is it?
No
Friday.
baseball game. You know, when you told me there was no game on Sunday, I literally was like, dude, he just looked at the schedule wrong. And then I
had
like,
to check it like
what
5
is
times.
No MLB baseball on a Sunday in July. That's like, I guess that's kind of the All-Star break, but I don't remember it being that way. And I remember teams playing during the draft. I don't know. I mean, it seems more smart that they're not, but the Rockies need all the focus they can get, so they don't need to be watching them lose 7-1 to the Reds, and then also trying to figure out whether or not Ethan Holliday or Avar gets the guy.
2 games. Like, what are we doing? It's weird. It's really weird. I don't know how locked in I'll be on these next 2 games. I'm not going to lie. I am very ready for Sunday. Jackson in the chat, in the Toyota chat, has a good point, I guess you could say. After the draft, the Rockies need to make Bill Schmidt step down from GM and make him return to a scout. Now, obviously, they wouldn't do that. If Bill Schmidt leaves his post as the GM, he would retire, in my opinion, or at least do something else with his life. But it goes back to my whole point from before of I'm nervous about him managing this draft because, again, we all know, I don't remember which media member, and I probably won't, I'm not going to call them out, but there was a media member, in the press box with us the other day who literally was like, Bill Schmidt is a dead man walking. Like there's no way he makes it into next season as the GM of the Rockies. They will most likely just get through the draft, through the trade deadline, and maybe even through the rest of the season and then, announce his retirement. I don't mind him managing the draft because it's like there's 5 other people who are going to be helping you with that draft. The trade deadline just feels a little more iffy to me because I'm like, like I said, he might not want another bad trade or something like that to be another stain on his resume on his way out the door. He might just make a smart, safe trade. And God, I don't know. So I don't want to get too much into the trade deadline, but I feel better about him managing the draft than I do about him managing our trade deadline.
Yeah, and maybe, if he has some personal pride, he'll go into this draft thinking, because whoever this draft pick is at number 4, let's say he makes the major leagues, he becomes an all-star, Bill Schmidt won't be around for it. He'll be sitting in his living room wherever he lives and maybe smiling, maybe
probably on a
being
golf
like,
course
hey,
somewhere.
I told you so, which we'll take. We'll take an I told you so because we haven't got very many of those.
Yeah, we'll give him credit for that.
Yeah, 100%. Like we'll be on this show in 2030 shouting out, thank you for taking Ethan Holliday. Now we're in the playoffs and this is great. But yeah, Bill Schmidt, it can, because like I've left one job in my life, and when I left that job to come work at ALLCITY and DNVR, I didn't really care the last month or so.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
I wasn't like
quiet quitting.
That's
what it's called.
I wasn't checking every box that I normally would if I was going to continue to work there. I knew I was out. I knew I had about a month, 2 months left, and I was like, oh, this is just a small little thing that I don't need to deal with. And maybe he's looking at these draft picks of, oh, it's just a 7th round pick, pick 155. I don't really care that much, and I'm not going to put that much work into it. Or maybe, or he's working really hard to try to somehow salvage his job and draft some guys.
Maybe.
But the thing with MLB is it's not going to be like, no matter who they draft this year, we're not going to see him for at least 2 to 3 years. So you're never going to know. And he doesn't have a lot of his last few drafts to fall back on and say, well, look at what this guy's doing. Look at what this guy's doing. There's not a lot of wins in the draft column. So it's going to be interesting to see. I wish we could just ask him point blank on a polygraph how much he actually cares about this draft and this trade deadline, because when you know you're out, or you feel like you're being kind of pushed out the door, it just is hard to care as much.
It is. And to be fair, he's getting completely shit on by people like us and fans and the rest of media.
Everyone.
I mean, literally everyone. So yeah, I would imagine that's a challenge to motivate yourself to show up to work and, put your best foot forward. But like you said, Bill, if you make a good draft this year, maybe you make a couple good trades, we'll give you credit for that. We will absolutely give you credit for that. I think it was Felix asked earlier, how many picks do we have? At least on day one. I haven't looked at our full pick allotment, but on day one, the Rockies are going to be picking 4th overall, 45th overall. By the way, former Trevor Story.
Story picked at 45.
74 and 77. So that's what we're going to be getting on day one, Sunday. Is 4, 45, 74, 77. Also, bonus pool allotment, $15.7 million. It's a nice chunk of cash. I don't think it's the most. I think the Mariners have more bonus pool allotment, but it's up there. It's a good amount. So the Rockies have money. They have picks. This should be a good draft.
Can you describe the bonus pool allotment to the fans and maybe me?
Nope, I cannot. Nope. Someone in the chat needs to look that up for me. There's things about baseball that I like we would need our friend Patrick Lyons to come back on this show and remind us, because there's things about the draft, about baseball, about free agency, contracts, all this stuff that I look at and I'm like, you need to be a lawyer to understand how all of this kind of stuff works. So no, smarter people know what the bonus pool allotment is. I just look at the number and I say, that's a lot of money. That looks good. And the Rockies are going to use that. Yeah. So,
well, and we've talked about this in the past, but the Rockies do need a bigger allotment just as a franchise to get guys to be able to sign their contracts here. We know that it's not an easy sign here for any. The only one maybe is hitters, where a college hitter that's I could be at Coors Field in 2 years. That may be an easier sign, but anybody that's trying to be a Major League Baseball pitcher that gets drafted by the Rockies. Shout out Brody Brecht. He got drafted by the Rockies last year. Iowa product, my boy. Looking good in the minors. I'm excited to see if he can make it up to the major leagues sometime next year. But in their heart of hearts, other than the classic, I'm glad I got drafted and I'm glad I'm in the MLB and I'm thankful, they're shitting their pants.
So our boy Dion just looked up what draft allotment refers to. Draft allotment refers to the total bonus pool a team has to sign players they draft in the first 10 rounds. This pool is determined by adding up slot values assigned to each of those draft picks. Essentially, it's the maximum amount of money a team can spend on signing bonuses for those players. So Condon got what? Was it $9 million? Maybe I'm overselling him on that. It was a lot of money when he was drafted last year in the top 5 picks. So you would imagine that Ethan Holliday, Ivar Arquette, whoever gets drafted by the Rockies is going to make a lot of money, and then the rest of that's going to trickle down to the guys below that. Hey, I want to transition though, because when I was doing research for this draft preview, it brought up a lot of old memories, both positive and negative. And so I wanted to go through and recap old Rockies draft wins and losses. We'll talk about wins first, because there are less wins, it feels like, than there are losses, or at least less meaningful wins than there are losses.
Sounds
but there
like
are
25 season.
But there are wins. There are a few of them. All right, Rockies draft wins. Off the top of the head, Charlie Blackmon, Nolan Arenado, Trevor Story, pick 45, as you mentioned, Kyle Freeland. Those are a handful of big wins. Can you think of, off the top of your head, and this is obviously subjective, the biggest Rockies draft win that you can pull to the front of your mind?
I think outside of those guys, there's nothing I have, but the Nolan draft has got to be, that guy's a certified first ballot. Maybe not first ballot.
Well, and you can go back to, did the Rockies drafted Todd Helton, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So Todd Helton.
Todd Helton will have the best Rockies career maybe in our lifetime of a drafted player.
Crazy.
And it's over. But
Matt Holliday, another Rockies drafted player. Tulo came over in a trade, so he was not drafted. Herman, like you said, came over in a trade. Kyle is a good one on that list, but
Kyle's the
He's a good
If you're
pitcher
just a
on that
Colorado
list.
Rockies fan, you may not love Kyle, but if you're a Colorado kid like I am and a Colorado Rockies fan, Kyle's like top three.
Yeah,
Just 'cause
Aaron Cook, was he drafted by the Rockies?
yeah, I think I saw that in the chat earlier. Aaron Cook was drafted here, I believe. I want to say like Jeff Francis, like a lot of that 07 team. There was a few pieces put together, the Willie Tavares, the Kaz Matsui that weren't drafted here. But a lot of that 07 team was homegrown talent that just, Brad Hopp and the Garrett
Generation
Atkins
R, right?
And yeah, exactly. Yeah. We had a good amount of decent draft picks that made the MLB.
You're right. Tulo was drafted, by the way. Thank you, Scott. I don't know why I was thinking he was traded. Maybe I was remembering him getting traded. Yeah, you're right. Because Tulo made his debut in... what was it? Was it 2000 and it was?
I think it was 2006.
It was 2006, right? Yeah. I think
2006.
It was like
he came up
August.
and you're like, oh my god, the Tulo chance for going at Coors Field, and then the next year they make the playoff run, go to the World Series with him at shortstop. Like
I rewatched a documentary on that 2007 Rockies run. The Generation R. Then you had the what was it, winning 14 of the last 15 games of the year. Because like I said, I mean, you guys know, obviously I wasn't here in Colorado when that was happening. I was watching it as a kid and just a fan of baseball. But just rewatching it through the little documentary I found on YouTube was, it made me emotional.
Yeah.
So I can't even imagine growing up here and seeing that as a born and raised Rockies fan.
Yeah, it was an incredible time. I think I was 13 years old at the time, and just absolutely loving the fact that we had this, at the time, 13-year-old baseball team. They were just as old as I am, and we're already headed to our first World Series, and what it could have meant for my life as a baseball fan and how good it could have been. And here I am in 2025, and we're 21-72, heading into the break, praying that we can get a good draft pick at number 4. It's
21-72.
07 feels light years away.
It really does. We got to hit our last break real quick. After the break, though, I want to talk about the Rockies' biggest draft losses. Can the Rockies learn from some of those draft losses, the guys who have not panned out, and can that be something that teaches them about how they go into the draft on Sunday? We'll talk about that coming up next. Well, speaking of money, if you are heading into the summer like I am, or God, we're already in summer. It feels like summer just started. We are in the middle of July right now. Monarch Money is the way you get on top of your finances, and I can't say enough good things about Monarch. I started using Monarch just a couple months ago, and it opened my eyes to not only how much I was spending, but also where areas that I could, specifically save. And my wife and I, we have goals on where we want our money to go, and we have kids in the future and future house. There's things that we want to kind of look forward to, and you got to plan for those things. And so Monarch Money has made achieving those goals closer than ever and feel closer than ever, because they have a lot of great visuals on the app. They've got graphs, they've got data, they've got charts, they've got trends, so you can kind of see where your money's going, things you're spending a lot more on, things you're not spending enough on, and you can kind of get an idea of where your money is going. So get control of your overall finances with Monarch Money. Use code DNVR at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year over at Monarch Money, monarchmoney.com with code DNVR. Also got to give some love to our friends over at Toyota. Toyota is the official vehicle of DNVR, of the Colorado Rockies as well. And I am officially on Toyota countdown. We have set August as our month to pick me up my first new Toyota. I have my 2007 Toyota Highlander that has been an incredible car. Just 250,000 miles on it, and it is still kicking. We're taking it up into the mountains this weekend for the All-Star break, or this week, I should say, after our draft coverage for the All-Star break. But I got to say, I'm pretty excited. I'm pretty excited to get on a new Toyota train.
Getting a new car is so exciting every time.
And it's even better that I'm going to get to start test driving Toyotas. And so I'm going to get to start and I might even test drive some of the cars that I know are a little bit outside of my range, maybe get in the huge Sequoia, that thing's the size of a monster truck. But, there's so many choices with Toyota. You've got the SUVs. You can go RAV4, which is kind of the line that I'm going for, or maybe a Toyota Tacoma if I'm going the truck route. But so many different choices. And Toyota just feels like a Colorado car. I feel like I can get anywhere I want. I can go up in the mountains. I can go fishing, backpacking, all that stuff with a new Toyota. So I'm excited. I'll keep you guys posted on my Toyota purchasing journey, but that's coming up here in just about a month. So I'm excited to get on that. Visit your Front Range Toyota stores at a location near you. AutoNation Toyota, Arapahoe and Centennial, Corwin Toyota in Boulder, Groove Toyota in Littleton, Mountain States Toyota in Denver, Stevenson's Toyota East in Aurora, and Stevenson's Toyota West in Lakewood. Toyota is the official vehicle of DNVR. All right, draft losses. Rockies have a few of these. We'll go back to 1997. Can you think of the loss, the draft that the Rockies missed? I wouldn't say missed because they picked this guy, but it didn't end up panning out. Can you think of their 1997 pick that they did not end up developing in the way that they wanted to?
No,
it's a long time ago. I was born that year.
I was 4.
I was. I don't even know if I was around at that point yet. Mark Mangum, the 17th overall pick in 1997, did not pan out. He's the first on that list. Casey Weathers, 2007. You could say Casey Weathers is another. He was the 7th overall pick, but you at least got DJ LeMahieu out of him, and I think that's actually what I was thinking of when I said Tulo. DJ, you got DJ LeMahieu via trade, a very young DJ LeMahieu out of Casey Weathers. So, you didn't develop the 7th overall pick the way you wanted, and Casey Weathers turned out to be a nobody, but you got DJ LeMahieu out of it. So
fleece the Cubs.
Why not?
Love to fleece the Cubs anytime we can.
The big one, Riley Pint, the 4th overall pick in 2016. You already mentioned him. I have Greg Reynolds higher as the biggest miss because he was the 2nd overall pick. He was your highest draft pick ever in franchise history for the Rockies in 2006, and Greg Reynolds didn't really do anything. And Cole just brings that up in the chat. But Riley Pint, the 4th overall pick in 2016, it's pretty brutal.
Yeah, it's a brutal miss for a high school pitcher. That I remember. It's kind of funny because Riley Pint, actually, a girl I was living with at the time, her family lived in Grand Junction, and they were Riley Pint's host family when he went to the Grand Junction Rockies.
Okay, all right.
So I have a Riley Pint signed card, and when I got it, I was like, oh my God. I remember telling her, this guy's going to be really good. And here we are 9 years later, and nobody knows who that girl is, and nobody knows who Riley Pint is. Exactly. Wasn't he I thought he was making his way back to the majors.
He was. Did I see correctly that he was doing a tryout the other day, or a couple months ago or something like that?
You might have been right, because I honestly thought he was either still on the roster or came back from another injury and was trying to make the major leagues. I thought there was a reclamation project there. But yeah, I just remember a high school kid throwing 102 in high school, and you're like, oh yeah, this is our next ace. This is our next guy. That 2016 draft you talk about, the Rockies miss with Riley Pint. You know who the 1st overall pick was?
2016, was it Harper?
He currently plays for the Rockies.
Oh, was it Mickey Moniak?
Mickey Moniak.
You're right. And you're right, Harper was before that.
I mean, shit, Cal Quantrill went 8 that year. The Rockies have had him.
Maybe not a great draft overall.
Yeah, no. I'm trying to see.
Because you talk about the 2006 Greg Reynolds draft, and we're going to talk about that in the next week when we do our biggest what ifs show. But Greg Reynolds was taken instead of Clayton Kershaw and or Evan Longoria.
Yeah, and really, honestly, this looking at this 2016 list, the biggest losses are not necessarily missing out or not necessarily drafting a player that doesn't end up being great. It's drafting a player in front of other players that end up being great. And that year, number 20 overall was Gavin Lux. Of course, the Dodgers just snagged him. Eric Lauer made the major leagues. And then really the rest of this entire draft is a bunch of guys, Cole Raggins. You're getting, Dodgers also got Will Smith that year. Literally the first 32 picks of the draft, the Dodgers had 2 of them. Both of those players ended up being gems. And then you have your random everybody else, your Riley Pints, your Cal Quantrills, Braxton Garrett's, so many guys in that draft that they missed out on, but also not an insane class where you look back on it and you're like, oh man,
yeah,
that Riley Pint was, I still remember just how, he can hit 102 with his fastball plus curveball, and his changeup is a plus pitch too. That just might be the formula to succeed at Coors Field if he would have ever got here.
That's hilarious.
It's so fun. Looking at old drafts is one of my favorite things.
It's funny because, hindsight's 2020. So anytime you look at an old draft pick, you're just, you can either sit there and say, God, I'm glad we dodged that bullet. Or you can sit there and say, oh man, why did they do that? It's a complete 50-50. It's black and white. But I do think it's interesting because the Rockies are in a position, we've talked about the risk to caution ratio with this draft. And are the Rockies willing to take risks, or are they going to be cautious in their draft? And I do think there is something to be gleaned from looking at, how the risk to caution ratio has panned out for other teams, right? Teams that took a big risk and ended up, getting a guy that was surprisingly good, or it fizzled out. And, but I do think there's something to be said about like the analytics behind that and kind of rehashing old history to inform how you make decisions today.
Yeah. And like I talked about earlier, but in general, the risk reward players, maybe they work out somewhere else, but the Rockies haven't shown us that the risk reward players work out here. Yeah. And we're not just saying it's the Rockies or the organization. Like, this is a very different style of baseball you have to play with here. You have to win with here. And you have to kind of build that from your farm system up, knowing that they're going to come up and either pitch at Coors Field or hit at Coors Field, and then play 81 games on the road every year in a drastically different environment. So the fact that the Rockies, I do want them to take big swings, but after those big swings, it also matters. Those big swings cause development issues if they don't make it all the way up, or they can't get up. Like the safer guys, to me, feel like they at least don't have to develop a ton, or they don't have to be ruined by the Rockies' development a ton in order to actually make the major leagues.
It's like getting a dog that's already like received training. Like sometimes people like train puppies until they're like a year or two old, and then they give those puppies to their owners and they're already like almost ready. They just have to do a little bit of extra work. That's kind of how it feels, where you're getting like a dog that's almost ready to be there. You don't have to do all of that extra work.
Yeah, and the brand new puppy, you're either getting a giant piece of by the time they're 2, or you're getting the dog that you exactly wanted and groomed to be how you wanted them to be.
100%.
Puppies and Rockies. That's what we're talking about today on the DNVR Rockies.
I know. It's what is it? Bark in the Park that they do. My dogs love Bark in the Park. Well, one of my dogs loves Bark in the Park. The other dog would probably hate it if we ever took her there. The Rockies, we talked about their bonus pool allotment, $15.7 million. It's interesting. I think this is another aspect of the draft that I always think is fascinating to look at. It's interesting to see how teams split up their money. Obviously, you're going to pay a huge chunk of that to your top draft pick. When you have a 4 overall draft pick, you're going to spend an insane amount of money on that specific pick. But it's interesting to see how they split up that bonus pool across, the rest of those, top 10 rounds is I think what Dion had said. So we were talking to Dre again before the show started, and Dre was, and Hank was in that conversation too. And they were kind of saying, like a lot of times you obviously spend big on the first pick, then you kind of like ease off on the next 2. So 45 and 74, maybe you're not spending a lot on the 45th pick because you're still getting a pretty good player at 45. The Rockies got Trevor Story at 45. So there's still good talent at 45, but maybe at 74, you start to pay a little bit more because then what the value is, because you're trying to, kind of entice certain players. You're trying to basically buy better talent at that point. So you're saying, we're willing to spend more money than maybe the value of this player at 74 or 77 or so on, because we're willing to basically buy a better valued player than spending extra money at 45 to get a guy who's already going to be pretty good. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Rockies approach how they allocate that money. But that also feels like a conversation, like I said, for the Hanks and the Patrick Lyons and the baseball nerds, as we say.
Right, yeah, the people that know, how way much they should be giving, how much they maybe will give the 45th pick, and also how much more a percentage-wise of that do they have to give. Like, let's say out of the top, they have 4 of the top 77. If they draft 1 pitcher and 3 hitters, even if the pitcher's drafted last, do they probably have to give him more than, not necessarily the number 4 overall pick, but does a pitcher at 77 make more of the bonus pool than the hitter they draft at 45 because of the Rockies scenario?
Yeah, totally. And agents have said that they are willing to ask for that. We've seen it actually before. So a lot of draft stuff coming up. I want to give you guys a heads up just before we wrap up the show. Sunday, we are going to be going live for our draft party watch along. We will be live at 4 p.m. Mountain Time. The draft starts at 4, so we'll be starting at the draft. And I would think probably within 15 to 20 minutes, the Rockies will be getting their fourth pick going. So we'll do, our full show. We might go long depending on, what there is to talk about. I'm sure it'll be interesting and exciting. So come hang out with us Sunday, 4 p.m. I know there'll also probably be some people in the bar. I wouldn't say there's going to be a watch party in the bar, not officially, but there'll probably be some people in the bar who are curious about the draft. So if you want to come out to the DNVR bar, we'll bring you up to the studio. We'll let you say hi, hang out. But it's going to be a good time, because when you get the 4th overall pick, you're going to get a good player. So we're going to be having a party here on Sunday.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's something we can hang our hat on, basically, that is not like we can't be let down by this. Well, there's a way we can be let down by the draft. But once I do what I always do, and the second they draft whoever it is, I'm going to just go full bore into that dude and hope that he's the greatest player ever. And we won't be let down for at least 4 more years. I mean, I'll have another kid. You'll probably have kids. Yeah. It's going to be a long life we're going to live before we're actually let down by this number 4 overall pick.
We have our purple tinted glasses on full force here coming up on Sunday. Monday show. That'll be our week coming up. So hang with us. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Shout out to Dion for not only informing us on all the things we don't know, but pushing the right buttons to make us look good. Thank you again to Nate for calling in earlier on the show. We'll see you guys next time. This has been the DNVR Rockies podcast presented by Bet365.
We all silly like the mayor.